My name is Socrates. I'm a Ken orator, writer, and poet in English and French. This is my Yupen journey. There's just something fundamentally wrong about this place. My name is Socrates Okong'o. I'm a Kenyan sophomore in the Huntsman program, pursuing a dual degree in international studies and a minor in French. It's been 1 year since I've been a student here, and I'm someone who's very critical, analytical, and overly philosophical. And I try to look at things from a holistic perspective, and then from then I go into the finer details. And this is how my Penn experience has been thus far, particularly focusing on some of the things that just don't make sense to me here on campus. If I'm going to summarize the school in 3 words, right? And I just want to put a couple of things out there. Disclaimer, this is my perspective as an international student. Secondly, whatever I'm saying is not the truth or objective. It's all relative and my lived experiences. Thirdly, I just want to put across out there that this video is going to be skewed towards the negative elements, but there are some very good stuff that I've talked about in so many other videos. But this is one of them that are going to bring about that element of the shortfalls, or the drawbacks of being a Penn student. So, this is not a video where I'm hating on Penn, it's a video where I'm showcasing a different perspective that my other videos don't bring to light. It's important for me to bring that across the table. If I'm going to summarize the negative elements of this Penn culture and life here at Penn, will be Penn is a cesspool of elitism, utilitarianism, and hedonism. They sound like big words, but let's break them down a little bit further and dive deeper into the details. If there's one thing I'm going to promise in this video is that I'm not going to be superficial. I'm going to go to the depth and the meat of the matter. Let's start off with the first one, right? The aspect of elitism. So, to put this into context, and it's very difficult to explain Penn culture to somebody who doesn't study at Penn. It's so hard. It's one of those things that you only know once you live here long enough. So Penn rests on only, let's say it's 6 blocks from 34th Street to 40th. And within these 6 blocks, which is like a 3-mile radius, you have an entire ecosystem. You have a hospital, you have cafeterias, you have school, study centers, you have lodges, you have the buildings, you have an entire ecosystem supporting close to 7,000 individuals within a 3-mile radius. Then an entire life exists. And so now people from all walks of life, from every single layer of the spectrum of the economic divide. You have the ultra wealthy, you have the first generation low income students, you have the middle class, but most of the middle class here at Penn skew towards the upper middle class. It's important to note that. But on net, you have a very disproportionate amount of students, skewing towards the highly wealthy and affluent spheres of society. Then you put them on campus within an enclosed system. Whatever happens by consequence is that the school takes the bright and brilliant minds of across the world from wherever they're from. And it just happens that the ones who are brought here are also wealthy, right? There's an interesting correlation. Then when they're here, it's like you've already taken the top layer, right, of the entire world. Now, the top layer also stratifies further, and you have hierarchies, and you have stratums. And all of these stratums are influenced by money. Influence and access and proximity to money dictate life here on campus. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit further for me to drive this point fully home, and for you to see things from my perspective and not just a personal view, but something that has substance to it. And that's what happens. So how does this element of elitism manifest itself on campus? So for the elitism, I'll just give 3 examples. 1, fraternities and sororities. 2, clubs. 3, general life here on campus, right? I'm going to bring about the aspect of money within those 3 spheres. Fraternities and sororities here on campus, if you really pay attention, that is, you're going to realize that they're divided based on economic access, period. The top tier frats correlate with wealthy students. And most often than not, you're going to realize that maybe it's because of the dues they pay. Maybe like, for example, fraternity, they have to pay dues worth $5,000. By that metric alone, you've already filtered a very fair proportion of Penn campus, because not many people have that discretionary $5,000 ticket to pay every single semester. So that's like 5,000 times 2 semesters, $10,000 a year to be part of a community. So by virtue of just having that price sticker, exclusivity is the result. Then, and that happens, now that becomes like the filtering factor. And the top tier frats are distinguished based on access to wealth. And because the only people who can afford that $5,000 sticker are people who have a certain level of access and influence, therefore you realize that within that it becomes another closed circle within the larger closed circle. Hence that aspect of elitism. And now that manifests itself across the board in the fraternities and sororities. And one might ask, why is this important? Well, two things. I realize that you have three kinds of people here on Penn campus. One, you have the kind who acknowledges the elitism and does not care at all. They don't care. They do not care. They are unbothered. Two, you have the people who acknowledge the elitism and realize there's nothing they can do about it. Penn is a reflection of the larger society. The large American society is stratified, and you have the top 1% and everybody down at the bottom, right? And Penn is just reflecting that large American sentiment here on campus, but now at extreme extents, given that everything is condensed here. And the third group of people are the ones who acknowledge that Penn is a reflection of society at a condensed and hyperinflated level, and they decide to play the game. They're going to find themselves in the top frats, even though it might cost them a bunch. They're going to try to segue into these inner circles because, one, they're looking for friendship, community, or even just network or professional gain. But people have different reasons for doing whatever they do. But that's just what I've said. You have the people who don't care at all about the elitism, people who care and realize they can't do anything about it, and people who realize they can do something about it and they go all the way. They play the game. They don't hate the rules, they play the game. But why is that important? A couple of factors here. No matter how insensitive you are to all that happens on Penn campus, it would be naive to say that fraternities and sororities don't affect your life here. Because in the inner circles, people meet either during parties or events or let's say mixers or whatever it might be. People now mingle and interact within such kind of circles. And when you meet them in the morning or in class, you realize that people gravitate towards other people. You know, like, we're fine. I mean, you all came here on Penn campus not knowing the other. How comes you already found people so fast? And all of this happened within these closed circles in the fraternities, sororities. And now when daylight comes, everything is normal, and you can't really see that people have already found their people, and it's mainly as a result of the close-knit encounters they have within the larger sphere of the frats and the sororities. So that affects your social life by consequence. I mean, professionally, let's talk about this a little bit further. Let's use investment banking as an example. So again, I'm going to assume that my audience or whoever's watching this video understands how investment banking works, where you're going to apply for a couple of firms, you're going to need a referral from an associate or an analyst who's going to flag your resume, so that now if you have 100,000 applicants, your resume is going to be filtered out and it's going to be given a first look, which is going to lead now to a first round interview. Then from then on, it's up to you to win the race. But when you think about it, Penn is a feeder school, it's a target school. So most of these top banks like JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, Evercore, and the Lazards, they come here. And most of the Penn students, they go there. As a result, if those Penn students are part of fraternities and sororities, and they want to vouch for somebody to get the first round interview, if everybody is a Penn student, if everyone is a Wharton student, by consequence of everybody having the sticker of a Wharton student, right, despite the fact the Wharton name is a big name and can work in your favor, it's in such large supply to the point that it's no longer a differentiating factor. It no longer makes you stick out. So you need like to go on the next level. Then you see how elitism manifests itself, that being in Wharton is not enough. You gotta go to the next level. Which frat were you in? Which sorority were you in? Then now the people who are gonna be in your frat, in your sororities, are the ones who are gonna vouch for you. So for example, if I'm not gonna mention any names, I don't think it's important. Let's say in a top fraternity. Then you have a guy in a top fraternity working at JP Morgan, or for example, Goldman Sachs, or Morgan Stanley, or whatever it might be. Then you reach out to them like, hey, I'm recruiting for investment banking. I need some assistance. You open coffee shops on them. Then they flag your resume. Then when it comes to the recruiting process, you're going to get a first round interview. But now think of the person who doesn't have that person in-house, who's going to now be the first point of contact, who they will talk to and eventually flag the resume, and lo and behold, you get the final offer. So in some sense, it manifests itself that way, where if you're not really in these inner circles, then you don't really have anyone above, like for example, the previous graduating class who's going to now vouch for you and elevate to the next level. So it becomes all the way tougher, unless you have other closed communities who are going to support you in that regard, whether mentorship programs, accelerated programs, DEI programs, whatever it might be. So then let's take things a little bit further when it comes now to the aspect of clubs and just general life here on campus. So for clubs, think about it this way. If you come to Penn and the clubs, the top finance clubs, expect you to already know how to do modeling, valuation, to run through a DCF, and all the intricacies of accounting and finance, and you're a freshman who just landed here on campus, it's a bit absurd. If you're going to ask me, it's absurd and it's obscene to expect a freshman to know all these kind of things. So you realize that the freshmen who come to Penn are the top 5% of the applicant pool. But within the top 5%, the clubs also have an acceptance of 5%. It's like the 5% of the 5%, which is ridiculous. And let's be honest with you guys. Let's just be honest here. If you are a first generation low income student from, let's say, Arizona or San Francisco, and half of your time in high school was spent doing part-time jobs to support your family, where on earth will you get time to learn how to do a DCF? Let's just be honest. You don't even know what a DCF is. You don't even know what investment banking is. All you want to do is study in school, make money for the family, go to a good uni, get a good job, support the family. That is the script you're running on. So why on earth will you learn how to do a DCF? The DCF is not even in your lingo. You don't even know what that is, right? But when you come to Penn campus, there's an imposition that you need to know how to do a DCF to enter these top tier clubs. Who are the people going to be knowing how to do a DCF before they get here? Are the guys who are in prep schools? The people who are going in business feeder schools or target schools or magnet schools, so to say? Are the guys who are in elitist spaces? The guys who have parents in investment banking who give them guidance and they operate under their tutelage? They're guys from elite circles. Those are the people who have time, access, and resources to know how to do a DCF before they come here. And when they come onto campus, guess who's going to be chosen? The person who knows how to do a DCF, which just happens, your acumen in finance upon coming to Penn is correlated with the level of access and wealth that you come from. Just by consequence of the example I've given you. If you are cleaning tables, right, in a hotel in San Francisco, who has the time to learn a DCF? School is already overwhelming. But if, let's say, you're coming from an affluent background, you don't have to think about so many things, your father is an owner of an investment bank or a private equity fund, then you can learn about the DCFs. You can do internships over the summer or when you're a junior in high school, and by the time you come to campus, you're like seasoned and ready to attack the world. Then because the rich people or the affluent people are the ones who know how to do the DCFs and they're the ones who are financially seasoned, they're the ones who get into these top tier clubs. And because they're the ones who get into these top tier clubs, they're the ones who get this preliminary access to information, and they're much more seasoned and primed for the recruiting cycle. You as a first generation low income student, first of all, you're excited to be at Penn because it means a lot for your family and for your people. By the time that excitement has tapered off, freshman fall has ended, it's freshman spring. By freshman spring is over, you're like, fine, it's time to start recruiting. You start recruiting, let's say sophomore fall. That's when you start exposing yourself to what a DCF is and valuation and all this other financial jargon. By that time, the person from an affluent background has had, 4 years of advantage, of like compounding and cumulative advantage over you. Good luck competing against them. And not only do they have the 4 years of cumulative advantage, they have the networks and nepotism working in their favor. Good luck competing against that. So first and foremost, you're underskilled. Secondly, you're under-networked. And thirdly, because you're a first generation low-income student, it means you're going to have to be doing work on campus or engaging in some form of economically generating activity to sustain yourself while you're here. And thirdly, because you're doing all this, you're not in a fraternity or a sorority, so you don't have the network and you don't have the time during these clubs because you're working to sustain yourself. And all the factors are just charging against you. And when you realize about this, the system at Penn is structured to reinforce elitism. If you just take that premise of how people come in and how they're prepared in different fashions, and how it manifests itself once again here on Penn campus, and now it's like a race where but you start handicapped. Usually that is, if you, and you know, take my word to the bank. And I'm saying this because I am a first generation low income student, right? So I understand these things because it's my lived reality. And it's like starting a race handicapped or with one foot tied to the other. Then you're told hop the entire way, right? It's the same concept. And when you really think about these things at a macro level, you realize how such kind of institutions that dictate and say that, oh, we're here to, it's an inclusive environment, everybody has a shot. Yes, everybody has a shot, but some are told to make the shot while blindfolded. It's that simple. There's also an element that you can't really see out there looking in. It's until you live on campus and have a critical eye. You need to have a critical eye to see these things. But if you're naive and you're ignorant, you will not see it. But I see these things every single day because I have a very critical eye. And I'm very philosophical, I'm analytical, I have the mind of a sociologist. And for me, my life here on Penn campus is like a social experiment. And I take a very ethnographical outlook towards it. So that's the elitism. The elitism, how it manifests in the Fraternities Sororities, how it leads to networks, how it leads to access. The elitism, how it manifests in the Penn clubs, whether it's the finance clubs or consulting clubs or whatever you want, how it leads to elitism. Life here on campus, again, is a reinforcement of elitism, because when you think about it, it's like, again, you take the kids of the top 1%, put them on campus, and everybody else. Of course, now, society is going to reproduce itself here on campus, but it's going to be skewed towards affluency. And one of the most interesting experiences that I actually have every single day when I have classes is, I'm not going to be very particular or mention any names, but there's a particular class where I'm taking, and my deskmate, the guys who sit next to me, is the son of a man who is worth $2.5 billion. What that simply implies is, Penn is such an interesting place where I am in class. I am seated next to a guy whose parents are worth $2.5 billion. $2.5 billion. That is 9 zeros, right? And he's just right next to me. And we're doing the same content. We're in class. We are doing the same math question. If in case he didn't capture anything, he's going to tap me and be like, hey, what did the professor say? Or hey, share with me your notes, right? And it's such an interesting experience where we might be in the same class. He comes from incredible affluency. I don't. His family is worth more than 2.5, because the dad is worth $2.5 billion, so his family is worth way more than that, right? We're dealing with the tens of billions here. And I'm next to him, and he has his own Penn experience, he has his own life. And his life, I will never know what it's about. I will never even know of it, right? Yet we're next to each other. And as much as we're in the same space, experiencing the same moment, I know that his lived reality is not mine. And by no means whatsoever will he ever fathom what it is, or what it even feels, or what life is as a first generation low income student. And in my regard, there's just no way in 1,000 miles at this point in time, until I become affluent in my own regard, will I ever understand what it is to be the son of a billionaire. And that's just how life is on campus. And we need to coexist. But within the coexisting, elitism is inevitable. Because what do you expect? You've put the top 1%, the kids of the top 1%, and the kids of everybody across the economic spectrum here on campus. Of course, again, the division, the inequality, the clustering and the cliquing and all this kind of stuff are bound to happen. You cannot see these things outside looking in, right? But once you leave on campus, all these things become way more evident and clear. Crystal clear. If there's one thing else that I really want to talk about, is my hypothesis with what's wrong with Penn. Like, there's just something fundamentally wrong about this place. Like, fundamentally wrong. And my take is because of money. That's it. Not because of money per se, but because of where money stands in a hierarchy of values and priorities. Any society that puts money above all else, is bound to see human beings as tools. Either tools of access, or tools of production, or tools of whatever it might be, as tools. And the moment you subjugate or make a human being subservient to an ideal, for example, money in this point in case, then you start seeing people as objects, as a means to an end, but not an end in and of itself. And the reason why I'm saying this is because this is like my own personal experiences. It's very difficult to find authentic and genuine relationships here at Penn, particularly at Wharton, because of the nature of the environment and what the environment brings out in people. What I've come to notice eventually is Wharton has good people, Penn has good people, but the culture and the environment brings out the worst in them. And I call it the diabolical self. And the diabolical self is when you put aspects such as money, access, influence above the premise of someone being a human, above the humanity that we all share. And how does this manifest itself quite distinctly? I have a couple of examples, but I will not dive into all of them. You know, a typical narrative that is circulated here at Penn is you don't know whom you're studying with. You might be studying with the son of, again, a billionaire. You might be studying with the next billionaire. You might be studying with the next Elon Musk. You might be studying with the next Johnson Hung. And you might be studying with the next Bill Gates or Steve Jobs, right? They're here on campus, but you don't know who they are or where they are. So people have this venture capitalist notion where, like, a venture capitalist will invest in 100 startups, hoping that one is going to work out. Or even, like, let's say one's going to be a unicorn, 4 are going to be, they're going to do well, but don't be unicorns, and the others might fail. They don't care. Similarly, people have this mass production, consumerism, this mass consumerism approach to relationships here at Penn. Is like, I want to know as many people as possible because one of them might end up really successful, and I want to call them 15 years down the line and be like, hey, I have this startup, are you going to bootstrap me? Or hey, I have this private equity fund, we're doing the fundraising, do you want to be in the Series A? Or hey, want to do A, B, and C? Because that is the notion. So people have this venture capitalist approach to relationships, which results in mass consumerism, the consuming of people, where the goal is not actually to connect, or can I say, the goal is not to know someone for who they are. The goal is just to be familiar with them enough to ask for a favor down the line. And that's the Penn culture. And you know, I'm saying this from my own lived experiences, but ask anybody else and just compare and contrast and see how much our responses are going to align. Because that is what the society, that's what the culture brings out in people. This mass consumerism, because, you know, Wharton is a school that, you know, it attracts the top of the top from all around the world. Therefore, if it's the top of the top here, I want to make sure that I get close to them, I network with them, and because they're going to be of utility to me in the future. Now, hence that element of utilitarianism. That's how it comes about. Seeing people as tools, seeing people as products, seeing people as avenues of access, pipelines, where you don't really want to consider the person for who they are. The question is, what can I get from them? What's in it for me? A very utilitarian aspect that dictates life here at Wharton. And that's what the culture brings out in people. And that's what I'm saying, there's nothing fundamentally wrong about the people, but there's just something about what the culture. Culture is not a buzzword. Culture is as real as sticks and stones. It's what it cultivates and brings about in people. And you talk to them and you see it and you wonder, what is happening here? Do you know why? My hypothesis is because we put money above all else. And when you put money above all else, everybody else follows down. Then you start seeing people as tools. And the question is, what can I gain from them? And that manifests even further into the fraternities and sororities, because you want to be in the top frat because the top frat attracts the kids of the top 1%, and you'll want the kid of a top 1% as your friend, because objectively speaking, they have access, they have influence, they know the right people, they're going to invite you in the right spaces, and as a result, you're going to become wealthy and grow your wealth. But that's what the culture cultivates. And I'm saying this openly and distinctly because there's no reason to hide, and some of these things have been plaguing my mind. And I look at like life here on campus here, and I'm like wondering, what is happening in this place? There's nowhere else in the world have I ever felt like this. So what is wrong with this place? And then I observed and I realized it's because of where we've put money in a list of priorities. And nothing's gonna change. Because for example, it's a very casual conversation here on campus saying, hey, I'm gonna go work for JP Morgan, I'm earning $150,000 a year, or I'm gonna go work for Lazard or Evercore, I'm gonna be earning $220,000 a year. And there's an obsession with that. And that is at the peak of our hierarchies. And if someone who is able to achieve, will get an internship at Evercore or Lazard or JP Morgan, they're perceived with such a pronounced level of esteem. Because that is what the society here, that is what the culture values. And if that's what the culture values, then I have a friend of mine who says, a friend of mine who quotes Thomas Sowell, yes, who says, just show me the incentives and I'll show you the outcome. Just show me the incentives and I'll show you the outcome. If the incentives are to make money or just make more money than your peers, then the outcome is a crab-like mentality where people just want to pull the other down just to get an upper hand. And guys behave like snakes, slithering all across campus. And you see it in the eyes. Something that really pisses me off about the culture here, and I must say for sure, is, for me, I'm a very critical person, and I read through people like a piece of paper. And sometimes I stare in their eyes and I look at them very, very keenly. And they think that I don't know their intentions. And they think that I'm not able to see through the facade and the mirage that they put forward. And just know that they're fake people, hypocritical in every single sense of the word. And they think that I cannot see it. I can see it in their eyes. I can see it, like it's bare, it's laid bare. I've met with enough people across the world, in Europe, in Africa, in the United States. And I've interacted with enough people to have, and I'm a person who's very in tune with myself, and I'm very sensible, and I pick up these cues very, 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 very fast. That was a tangent. But the case in point that I want to drive home is, there's just something particular about this place. Will you be successful? Yes, we will. 96% of the class graduates. 90% end up earning a median income of, I think, $98,000, if I'm not wrong. 50% of the Penn class ends up in either consulting or finance, earning salaries of above $100,000. Entry level. From a societal metric perspective, will you be successful? Yes, tick, you will. But if you just zoom into your life here on campus, the level of sacrifice that you have to pay at a personal level, emotional, moral in some sense, is very, very significant. And I was just like journaling and introspecting how much I've changed as a person over the last year, and I have fundamentally changed. And it's as a result of what the culture brings out in people. It's a result of what the space cultivates. And all these things I'm just saying to lay them bare. The last one is hedonism. So Penn has a very big play hard, work hard culture where you work to the bone and you party all night long. I'm actually gonna go very deep into that. It's very self-explanatory. Hedonism, the pursuit of pleasure, period. And it's part and parcel of the Penn culture, whether through parties, hangouts, events, whatever it might be. Because if you're going to work to your bone, you're going to party as hard as you can just to find a relief of the exertion that you've applied yourself to in the course of the week. And the whole aspect of hedonism is relative. For me, I'm a good kid, I'm a Christian, So of course, what's hedonistic to me might be a casual Thursday to somebody else. You know what I'm trying to say? What's hedonistic to me might be a casual Thursday to somebody else. And what's a casual Thursday to somebody else is another person's daily experiences. So, there are levels to this thing. So deal with that information what you may. I'm not really going to dive deep into that. It's self-explanatory. Hedonism varies from person to person based on their core values and just moral ethic, period. So that's it. Also, the Penn is a cesspool of elitism, utilitarianism, and hedonism. And all these three factors are undergirded by money, access, and lack of it. I have nothing more to say. Those are my tidbits of the elements of Penn culture that don't really come to the forefront until you live here and have a lived experience of what it means to be a Penn student. You will not see this in any brochure, you will not see this in any vlog of Penn, you will not see this in any review or Reddit post or article. You will not see these things. It is until you live on campus that you'll have a very personable and holistic view of the good, the bad, and the ugly. That's it for me. Kwaheri, take care, ciao, à la prochaine fois.